Sex is the life force energy that runs through us all. Can you use sexual energy for your spiritual evolution? Or perhaps for emotional healing? Is it even possible? Clinical Sexologist Dr. Martha Tara Lee will explore all these and more on Eros Evolution on OMTimes Radio.
Welcome to Eros Evolution, where sexuality and spirituality meets. My name is Martha. I'm a sexologist based in Singapore, and my company is called Eros Coaching. That's Eros Coaching.com. And this show explores the link between sexuality and spirituality. And today I had lined up a guest. Her name is Elise Carr, and she's supposed to be talking about the divinely empowered woman. However, I haven't been able to get her onto the show. However, the show has to go on, so I felt inspired to talk about sexual empowerment for today's episode. So yesterday, what happened was I had a interview request for a book, and the book is actually also on sexual empowerment. Then today's topic by the guest that was supposed to be on the air.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
The truth is, you can't change the world if you're broke. I know, I've tried. Isn't it time you turned your life's calling into a profitable, freedom-based business? I'm Michelle Barr. Join me every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern for Sacred Success.
Medium Lisa Phoenix, Mediumship Messages and Musings, explores mediumship and all things metaphysical. Lisa Phoenix invites you to reach above and beyond your everyday experiences to explore new dimensions in the spirit world. She will do live readings to connect callers to their loved ones in spirit, shares engaging stories and teachings from her own personal experience, and will have intriguing conversations with other mediums, spiritual teachers, and healers to help you understand the metaphysical world so you can connect to these forces in your day-to-day life. Join your host on this magical and metaphysical journey into the world of spirit every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network. Simone Milasas would like you to know that business can be fun, which is why she wrote the book, Joy of Business. What if you could have the joy of business rather than the stress and struggle? Most of the time, the only thing stopping you from a thriving business is you. In the Joy of Business book, Simone gives you access consciousness tools and pragmatic ways to get out of your own way and to create the business, life, and living you know is possible and beyond what this reality says is achievable. Business is joy. It's creation. It's generative. It can be the adventure of living. You can purchase your copy of the book through Amazon or Joy of Business website, www.accessjoyofbusiness.com. Bringing you the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio, your conscious lifestyle on steroids.
Welcome back to Eros Evolution. This is where sexuality and spirituality meets. Today I want to be talking about sexual empowerment, and Just before the break, I was explaining more about what sexual empowerment means to me, and how in this show I want to talk about my personal sexual empowerment journey. So let's begin. Okay, so how did I become sexually empowered? Do I consider myself sexually empowered now? Well, I first of all, I feel that sexual empowerment is an ongoing journey, and we can only be where we are at based on what we do know and what we feel inside ourselves of where we are at. For me, taking back the power that has always been mine would mean first having gone through not having the sense of power, and through that journey feeling more integrated. So I would say I do feel a lot more sexually empowered than I ever have been. However, as I continue in my personal journey with myself and my sexuality, this is an unfolding like a flower that is still ongoing. And our experiences does shape who we become. So let me go into a little bit more about my journey. So how did I experience sexual empowerment? I being brought up in Singapore, being Singaporean Chinese, being Asian, being heterosexual, very much have to admit that I had my blinkers on, not because of discrimination or anything, but more of just being sheltered. A lot of it started to unfold for me when I went to sex school, and I was asked things about the whole spectrum of human sexual behavior which I never even questioned, never even was exposed to, such as GLBTQ, which stands for gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgendered, questioning people and their sexuality. Then going on to also explore themes around sex and aging, sex and illness, and also sex and disability. These are some of the bigger topics that I have had to explore. And of course, not forgetting BDSM, which stands for bondage. And it also is an acronym for sadomasochism, which is play of pain and pleasure. And then there's also domination. So BD, bondage, domination, sadomasochism, and also the play with BD, DS, which stands for playing with domination, submission, then sadomasochism, which stands for plain pleasure. So I wasn't really exposed to all that, and that was really uncomfortable for me. Then also admitting that I did play with some kind of power play, pain pleasure, to a smaller extent in my personal life, even before sex school. Being fully in my body and being exposed to all the possibilities of pleasure, sensation, helped me to become more sexually empowered. So I want to share a little bit more about the pivotal milestone landmark experiences in my sexual empowerment journey, how I became sexually empowered. Going to sex school is the big one. The other big one was learning how to masturbate when I was 5. My sister was the one who came to me and said that I would feel really good if I put my bolster between my legs and rub on my clitoris. She didn't use the word clitoris. She just said nonok, which is actually a Malay for private parts. It's a Malay word. And so she demonstrated to me, and then I tried it and it didn't work. Then I went back to her, asked her to demonstrate for me. She did. And then I just couldn't believe that my sister, who is younger by a year, could do something I couldn't do. So I just kept trying and trying until I had my first orgasm. After a couple of orgasms, I felt a bit worried. What is this I'm feeling? So I went to an adult. I went to my mother. I demonstrated it to her. And to her credit, she said, oh, that's just something that's normal. And she didn't say stop masturbating. And so that was one of the pivotal experiences of my sexual empowerment, because it was me learning that I could have pleasure from my body and that it was normal. I'm very, very grateful to my mom for being who she is and how open-minded she is. And another pivotal moment, I would say, even though on hindsight, really I didn't see how powerful it was, but now when I look back, I realize I have a lot to thank my mother for. Another memory is how my mom would walk around the house naked. In the past, after work, she'd just take off her clothes, walk around the house naked. And my sister and I, we were still young, and we would try to shame her. Like, we would say things like, oh, shame, shame, don't you have any clothes? Why are you not wearing clothes? Because that's the kind of remarks we get in school. You don't walk around the school naked. You have to put on clothes. And that was also part of the shaming that my parents did in making my sister and us and myself start wearing clothes. So when my mom would walk around the house without clothes, naturally we did that to her. And she said, what do I have to be ashamed of? This is my body. This is where both of you came from. And this is my house. I can walk around naked if I want to. And she refused to allow herself to be shamed. I guess on hindsight, it must have been puzzling for us why we have to wear clothes and she can walk around the house naked. She has a husband, which is my father, in the house, and that's fine for him to see her naked, but not for us. So that was a bit puzzling, strange. However, it stuck to me how she couldn't be body shamed. That was also another pivotal moment of my life. When I was growing up, I did try to ask my mom about sex. And I never had any clear answers from her. When I asked her about how I was made, she would say, "You'll know when you grow up." So I never had a clear answer from my mom. That people assume that must be, coming from a positive family. That must be why I became a sexologist, but it's actually not true. I just have glimpses of positive sexuality in my life, and they were enough for me to be curious and open and positive about sex. When I did ask my mom about sex, I never got a straight answer. However, she would give me the hint of something that was wonderful about it. She would smile when I asked her, and when I asked her if it feels good, she would just smile. So sometimes saying less actually makes you wonder more about the possibilities. And that's what I did. I wondered about sex, and I looked forward to growing up and finding a partner, getting married, having kids. That was the life I envisioned for myself. Another moment was meeting my first boyfriend having good sexual experiences. We would make out. We didn't have penetrative sex. And with my second boyfriend, who became my first husband, I did give him my virginity, and we were already committed to getting married at that point. And we would have practice sessions where he would finger me, first with one finger, then two fingers, and later on we then did it with the penis after two fingers. But it was a process of many sessions over a period of about 6 months, actually. And it was 6 months not because I needed 6 months, but because I wanted to wait for a special day, my 21st birthday, to be able to have sex. And I didn't want it to be something that was rushed, and so that's what we did. We had a lot of make-out sessions. He would finger me, and he would encourage me as he fingered me to experience what that felt like in my vagina, what it felt like when I was wet, when I was very wet, what it meant to him, and how I would begin to notice the point of reference of what he meant when I was wet and very wet. And over time, I began to have more and more connection with my vagina. And he would show me, like 1/3 of his finger would have gone in, and then he would ask me to squeeze my pelvic floor muscles, my vagina around his finger, and how that would feel for me. So I was learning how to have a relationship with my vagina through the practice sessions. And that was one of the sweetest times of my life. So more after the break of pivotal milestone moments towards my sexual empowerment journey after the break.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Eros Evolution is where sexuality and spirituality meets. Join me, Clinical Sexologist Martha Tara Lee, on Eros Evolution on Thursdays, 4 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Dr. Kevin here, and I want to invite you every Thursday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, to join me on the Dr. Kevin Show, where we have a diversity of guests who help you step outside the box, behind the curtain, and see what a load of crap is going on in the world today, so you have more information with which to make better decisions. We'll see you there. Namaste.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. What if business could be fun? What if business is the adventure of living? What are you choosing? Where do you do business that makes it easier, more fun, or more joyful for you? We'd love to see where you do business. Connect with us on Instagram at Joy of Business or Twitter at Joy of Business, and share your pictures with hashtags BusinessDoneWhere and Joy of Business. Let's change the world with business. The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Hello, this is Martha from Eros Evolution. You're listening to Eros Evolution on the OMTimes Radio Network, and you can listen to this show on our link, that's omtimes.com/mobile. With this link, you and your friends will be able to listen to this show without needing to download any app. So this is very easy, convenient, and some apps, as we know, works on iPhone and not Android, and vice versa. And you don't need to go through all that. You just need this link, omtimes.com/mobile, and you'll be able to listen to the show. So today we are talking about sexual empowerment, and just before break, I was talking about the different milestones of my life, and I have more to share. So I was talking about how I lost my virginity. I talked about my memories of growing up in a family where my mom was actually pretty progressive, even though we didn't really have any big major sex talk. I wasn't traumatized for it. I actually was looking forward to growing up and being sexual. Another pivotal moment actually was when I married the guy I was telling you about, my second boyfriend. I married him, and even though he was sweet and lovely and wonderful to me during the process of courtship, after marriage, this is where, reality sets in, and what people call the honeymoon phase is over. So we got married, and we would have sex, and sex would always be more or less the same thing, doing the same thing. And even back then, I noticed that I would get bored pretty quickly and easily. So I would try to suggest new things. And in one particular session where we were having sex, I was lying on the bed, and he was standing and thrusting into me. And I just tried touching his chest, and he suddenly said, "Don't distract me." And I was totally shocked, because that was not that was not typical of him, and that was not the guy that I fell in love with and married. So I reflected on it because I was so shocked for a few days, and finally I confronted him. When you said don't distract me, don't touch you, were you expecting me to just lie there and just be thrusted into? And we're talking about your pleasure and you enjoying yourself. What about my pleasure? That was a pivotal moment for me, because I really started to question about consent, and I didn't have the vocabulary for all these things about mutual pleasure. However, it just felt so wrong to me how he was telling me to not distract him, to lie back, to shut up, to just allow myself to be a receptacle. That was pretty shocking for me, and that started my journey of wanting to understand more about female sexuality, not just for myself, but also for people around me, like my friends and other women. So I guess from that moment, a seed was planted, because if I have struggles with my beloved, then what about other women? On hindsight, my ex-husband probably was trying to prolong his ejaculation. He probably had some concerns around early ejaculation. He was wanting to be a better lover. However, in his desire to do well, he actually was emotionally disengaged from me, and therefore blurted out, "Don't distract me." He probably didn't mean to hurt me. However, this just really stuck in my head, because it was just so uncharacteristic of him. And so life would go on. There would be many other things in my life, but I'm sharing the pivotal moments. I already mentioned going to sex school, and one of the things in sex school at the Institute for Advanced Study of Human Sexuality, where I got my doctorate in human sexuality from, they were offering this program called Certificate in Sexological Bodywork, and I had no idea what it was. It was separate and from my doctorate, and I was strongly encouraged to take it, so I did. And it was a body-based program where you had to do exercises and practices by yourself, with partners, with people that you work on their bodies, and you will work with men and you will work with women, women with people with vulvas and people with penises. You work with them, and I learned how to give vulvar, penile, and anal massages, and also I had to receive them as well. It was definitely very different from me, being touched in a sexual way and yet not feeling any romantic attraction to that person. That was quite different. Also with the intention of moving sexual energy, there may be intentions set of healing, and that really opened up my mind to the whole world of sexual possibilities. That really helped me to feel more empowered as a person, because there would be a lot of practices around authentic communication and consent and boundaries that really helped me to find my sexual voice of being able to speak up in the bedroom, because we are not taught that in my community as an Asian person to speak up. If anything, women are told to just shut up and sit down or just look pretty. Maybe that's not the experience for all Asians, but that was certainly some of my experiences growing up. And so I always felt if I was too strong or too smart, it may ruin my chances of finding a life partner. So some of these things really didn't support my power and my sexuality, because a lot of it was playing this role of being rescued, or the princess role, and that really doesn't help anybody to feel powerful. In the sexological work, in the sexological bodywork program, I also was introduced to the concept of orgasmic yoga. Orgasmic yoga is a practice where you are encouraged, for the purpose of the training, to self-pleasure for 30 days, for 30 minutes each day. And when I was given this homework, I was very resistant, and I didn't do it properly because we had just so much materials and homework coming at us. I just did it on a superficial way. However, when I broke up with my second husband 4 years ago, I was depressed. I had very low energy, and a friend of mine reminded me. She said, "Don't shut down your sexuality because you're a sexologist." And I'm definitely somebody who does what I preach, and I am an advocate of doing what you say and saying what you do. So I definitely didn't want to shut down my sexuality, because that would mean hurting my practice and potentially hurting my clients. So I did orgasmic yoga. I committed to it. So I did it every day for 30 minutes for about 1.5 months. Within the first week of doing orgasmic yoga, I felt an energetic shift in my body and also in my heart. That really helped me to not just radiate but glow, and I started to look so good. I started to have, strangers stop on the street and turn their heads and look at me, which hasn't happened in my life, not much at least. And that was pretty awesome to feel so big energetically. And orgasmic yoga really helped me to get deep with myself. As I mentioned in yesterday's interview, actually, that orgasmic yoga, if you do it for 30 minutes, it feels like an eternity if you are somebody who's used to masturbating quickly. However, in the midst of that time, you find yourself needing to confront yourself, facing yourself, including your need or compulsion to run away from facing yourself. The slowness of the self-pleasure. If you have half an hour and you're used to masturbating, getting off in 5 minutes, but you have half an hour now, you would go slower, you would go softer, and you would feel more. you would want to feel more and relish every sensation that is in your body. You want to play with yourself and try different things, creative things. If you masturbate with your right hand, maybe you try it with your left hand. If you always do it lying down, maybe you want to be kneeling or standing. If you are always doing it in a certain position, maybe you try it in another one. Another one that's quite powerful is masturbating in front of the mirror. It can be very, very confining as well. So doing it in different ways actually really helps our neural chemicals in our bodies and the neuroplasticity of our bodies, which means the flexibility of our bodies and also the connection with our body and brain. This really helps us to become much more engaged and much more present. And when you do something long enough, you do go into a meditative state. And this is the reason why I wrote my book and why the subtitle is Masturbation, Meditation, and Everything in Between. Because there is this spectrum of masturbation, just get off quickly, and then there's going into meditation. And then there's all this space in between in which you play with. And because orgasmic yoga really was one of the practices that really changed my life, that's why I wrote it for my second book. So I tell people my first book is the one that I felt I needed to write, because everybody says write a book. And then the second one was the one that I really, really wanted to write. Second one was the one that I was afraid to publish and didn't feel that I could get it published. So I self-published it. So I recommend listeners who are interested in orgasmic yoga to check out my book, Orgasmic Yoga, on Amazon. For more after this break on my sexual journey.
Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Have you bought into the idea that you have to work hard for your money, that business is hard? I will share some dynamic access consciousness tools to get you out of your own way so you can create a business that actually succeeds. Join me, Simone Millisers, on The Joy of Business at 4 p.m. Mondays Eastern.
Come heal yourself. What is healing? Healing is nothing but connecting with your all-knowing higher self that already has solutions to all your problems and is always there to guide you. Through this show, we help you to connect with that you are and tap into that innate potential you have to transform your life and fly high. Please join me, your host Monica Goyal, every Sunday, 7 p.m. Pacific. Namaste.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle. Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back to the show. We are into the last 15 minutes of this show, and we're talking about sexual empowerment today. And today in this show, I first started by explaining what sexual empowerment means to me, and then began to talk about my sexual journey, the pivotal milestones, experiences of my life in which led to my sexual empowerment. And I was talking about how my mother-daughter relationship with my mom, and how that formed my sexual attitudes, and how losing my virginity was a very empowering experience for me. Going to sex school, learning about sexological body work, and then the practice of orgasmic yoga. All these formed and shaped my sexual empowerment. Another one of that, and I promise you this is the last one, is the ending of the relationship with my second husband. So after the relationship ended, I noticed a pattern between my first and second husband, and how it played out. And one of the big things is how I would be able to get the guy, marry the guy, and yet have a lot of difficulties while in the relationship in terms of communication. That was very puzzling for me, because I have a degree in mass communications, and communications is one of the things that I was known to be good at. And yet when it came to my relationship, I would fail miserably. So because I'm a sexologist and I kept hearing about Tantra, decided to go learn more about Tantra. That's when a whole new world opened up to me, where I understood more about sexual polarity, the energies between male and female, the dance between two people when they're in a relationship, and then about femininity. So at this point, even though I was comfortable with myself as a sexual person, I like sex, I can have sex, I enjoy sex, I am quite good at sex. However, there was still this last bit which I really didn't fully reconcile within myself. Even after I was a sexologist, I still had issues with it. And that was being a woman. I identify as a woman, I consider myself heterosexual. Yet there was still this bit about me not being happy about being born a woman. Being born a woman would mean having the menstruation every month, how the inconvenience of it, the expectation of giving birth to life and getting pregnant, and all these things, how women are considered to be weaker, and how we have certain roles that we need to play, and then there's all these societal and cultural expectations on a woman, all these things that I didn't like. And in Tantra, I found a way. In Tantra, I began to understand what masculinity and femininity meant and how it plays out. And slowly I became more and more curious about embracing the feminine side of myself, the part of me that I always ran away from because of sheer ignorance, because you don't know what you don't know. And the more I embraced my femininity, the more I understood what it was, the more I realized that actually being feminine is a power, that being feminine is not being weak. Just like cloth is soft, but cloth is definitely not weak. And I began to understand and appreciate the feminine side of myself. I began to play with the feminine side. I began to go into relationship with that aspect of my sexuality. That included doing things that felt good rather than was what was necessarily the best thing to do at all times. What would feel good for me as a woman would mean wearing dresses, keeping my hair long, putting on makeup, wearing earrings. These were the things that felt good to me. It may not necessarily be the same for you, and I'm not saying that you have to, but what I'm saying is experiment, try, focus on what feels good to you, and after some time you will find your own path of what feels good to you. And it's important to feel good, because it's not just about getting caught up in our heads and doing all the things that we should do. It's also about really loving and relishing life, and a big part of it is enjoying being in this body. And how are we going to do that if we don't notice and keep noticing what feels good and ask ourselves moment by moment, what can I do? What do I really feel like doing? What gives me joy? And the more I went into this, the more curious I became. And 2 years ago, I went and got this additional training called the Art of Feminine Presence. So I went for the teacher training, became a certified Art of Feminine Presence teacher, and I've been teaching this every week, except for every 5 weeks I would have 1 week off for the ladies, and I was running this for the whole of last year, and I'm still continuing running Art of Feminine Presence classes in Singapore. If you're interested to find out more about Art of Feminine Presence, if you're interested to work with me, I am available by Skype, and I do Skype private sessions, and I also run many workshops, and I'm planning to run retreats. So if you're interested, do reach out to me, and my website is Eros Coaching. That's Eros Coaching.com. So I want to give you guys a few takeaways from today's show. What am I really talking about? What am I sharing? What am I encouraging you guys to do? If you want to be someone who is more sexually empowered and own all of yourself, including your sexual side, if you want to claim all of yourself as a sexual being, recognize that your sexuality is a big part of your power. And that part of your power, I call it your adult power, your mature power. This is almost like the last frontier of being an adult, because we get stuck in our childhood ways of looking at sex. We are ignorant. We become sexually repressed and suppressed because of what we hear and learn, and we have bad experiences. However, confronting that side of yourself, opening up yourself to all of yourself, really is a big part of your power. And that really opens up all the energy channels in your body, and that really makes you feel powerful, wonderful, awesome, and radiant. How do you do that? I think through this show, you probably already have some ideas of what I'm passionate about saying. One of it is really learning how to enjoy being in your body, moment by moment, asking yourself what gives you joy, what feels good, how do you feel in your body. First, noticing, being aware, that's the first one. Then the next one is taking action, doing small things of what makes you feel good. The third one would be trying different things, and that might include buying my book, Orgasmic Yoga, which actually has 30 different practices of how you can do orgasmic yoga. So it makes suggestions, and it's entirely up to you what you like, what you don't. However, it's all about challenging yourself sexually. So rather than talking about sex and thinking about it all the time, why not just do it? And then things will come up, and they will come up. But just trust your inner wisdom that it will not lead you to a place of harm. And the fourth tip that I have for you is to get support, to learn, to get a guide, to have someone show you the way, point you in different directions. And the fifth one is to get educated. And maybe you don't feel that you need a guide or a coach at this point. However, definitely you can get educated by going and reading articles online. And magazines are not necessarily the best place to learn about sexuality. I do contribute to magazines. I give quotations. I answer media inquiries. However, most magazines are really written to sell magazines, and they're not necessarily that educational. I would say go to good websites like WebMD, that's WEDMD, and Scarlet Teen. So these are some of the suggestions that I have for you about really coming into becoming more sexually empowered, claiming all of yourself, being aware, exploring what feels good, taking action, getting a coach, and getting educated. So these are my top 5 tips that I have for you today in today's show about sexual empowerment. And I'd love to hear from you. Drop me an email. My website is Eros Coaching, and I also have a Facebook page called Eros Evolution. And I really want to hear from you. And if you liked my stories around my sexuality with my mother-daughter relationship with my mom, you can also subscribe to free content that I have. And it's called eroscoaching.com/Mother's Day. So I have some Mother's Day videos out there for you. But it really talks about my relationship with my mom. So if you like those content that I shared, you would be able to get more there. Also, I want to talk a little bit about next week's guest. I have Charlie Glittman coming back to the show for a second time, and he's going to be talking about awesome anal sex. And this is a topic that it hasn't been covered before, and I love to have him because he's amazing and he has an amazing website. You may want to check it out, and it's called makesexeasy.com. And we're going to be talking about anal sex in next week's show, and anal play has become very popular. So if you want to talk about this really taboo topic, do tune in to Eros Evolution next week.